I mean, I'm sure they do. Does having music theory knowledge help? I'm sure it helps. I don't really have much of anything. My music theory is like write in a key and use power chords. That's like, I don't know much. I don't know much of music theory at all. I don't think it's necessary, but I definitely think it does help. It's kind of like... I'm trying to think of like a good analogy for that. I don't know. Give me a sec. So like, okay, if you're cooking a stew or something, or you're cooking anything, right? And if you have some cooking knowledge and you know what kind of spices go together, then you'll probably make a really delicious, yummy dish, right? You know how much of things to put in, or you're following a recipe, or you kind of know what you're doing, right? Then it'll taste delicious. If you don't know what you're doing, you can still throw in random spices. You can like give it a sniff and be like, yeah, that smells good. I think that'll be good in there. You can put it in there and it can still turn out amazing. But if you know how to cook, it's like it's like a cheat sheet almost, you know? I think it just helps. Is that a good one? I think that's a good one. So having music theory knowledge doesn't hurt at all. I think it does, in fact, help. But as far as me, all my music theory came from like what I learned in band in school. And beyond that, I haven't done a whole lot. I want to learn it. Music theory is one of those weird things where like there's no real like square one to start learning it, or at least that I've found. It feels like there's little bits of it everywhere. So I'll watch like random YouTube videos about like writing in a certain key or making a music sound a certain way. Like I watched a lot of videos about like how to make stuff sound spooky or like how to make metal, because, you know. But I think if you have a structured approach, if you can find one somewhere, that's probably a good idea. It's not necessary though. I think the most important thing is like if you want to make stuff, make stuff. If you want to study music theory, do that. But if you're waiting to make stuff until you learn some music theory, but you don't feel motivated to learn music theory, then just make stuff instead, you know? But if you, I don't know, if you find it interesting and you want to learn it, like learn it. But I think it almost helps to start making stuff first, you know? And like if you're learning guitar or piano or any instrument, maybe learn like scales, chords, like that kind of basic stuff. I think that's important, you know, so you at least kind of have some kind of language to work with, I guess, right? You have some kind of basis of what things are. You're not like, I'm just going to hit a random key and see what happens. You can do that too, though. Hey, Naughty Moose, how's it going? Oh, shoot, you asked me first. It's going great. I'm overflowing with inspiration. I hope some of it oozes into your guys' screens or whatever and leaks into your fingertips. Or however inspiration works. I hope that you can get some from this. The page numbers should be correct. They've got to, right? Artists who draw before learning proper technique. Yeah, like, and the other thing is, how do you... Here's the other thing. If you go studying, like, perspective, rendering, proportion, anatomy, all these, like, drawing techniques... If you do that before you know how to draw, you don't really, or before you start drawing, before you have experience drawing, you're not really, you don't really have any context for it, right? You don't really have the context to understand how to apply it. So in a way, it's almost, you know, I don't know, it's almost redundant or something. Like it's something you're going to have to revisit anyway later, and then it will make sense. So... I don't know. I don't think there's a wrong way to do it, though. But yeah, it's like anything. I think you have to do something first to at least know that you like doing it. And then once you're invested and you're like, oh, I want to learn this, I want to get good at this, then that gives you the motivation to learn the boring stuff. Because let's face it, there aren't many, like some artists are really crazy about anatomy and they just want to draw like all the craziest little veins and muscle lines and stuff, right? Some musicians want to go crazy into the nitty gritty of music history and theory and they just want to know every little thing. But that's not most people. Most people find that stuff boring as AF. You're like, I don't want to sit here and read about music. I want to make music. I don't want to read about drawing in perspective and drawing buildings. I want to go out and do that. And a lot of it is learning by doing, right? But once you start doing, then you're like, oh, this is cool. And then you almost gotta like exhaust what you know And then you're like, okay, I'm getting bored of the stuff I'm making. And this goes for anything, right? You make stuff until you get bored. And then you're like, okay, I want to make better stuff, but I don't know how to get better. That is the best time, in my opinion, to go and get some outside knowledge. Go learn some stuff. Go get inspired. You know, look at art that's nicer than yours. Listen to music that's, you know, more complex than yours, or taste some cooking that's yummier than yours, that kind of thing, to spark that inspiration. You're like, oh, that's cool. And then you can see what that person is doing, you know? Like, for me, I'm like, okay, well, I've always wanted to learn more about classical music and stuff. And I've always wanted to, I always kind of wanted to play guitar. It's not super important to me, but I'm like, it'd be cool to play guitar. So I'm probably never going to be amazing at guitar because I don't care that much, but I do think it's cool. So I'll go through phases where I'm like, I'm going to play some guitar, you know, but I'm not going to ever get really good at it. So so I've been listening to Tim Henson, and I'm like, wow, this guy's amazing. He's just inspiring me to I just want to get good at everything that I like doing, you know? So he's making me want to think more about music theory and that. So I'm kind of looking into it more these days because I have that specific inspiration kind of pushing me there, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, definitely listening to people. I saw that She has a new release that came out today. And my friend Donut Shoes, but it's not chiptune. I think he said it's Digital Fusion. I saw the release earlier. So that's cool. But whatever you do, just find people who are better than you. One trick, though, if you find people who are like masters, I mean, I guess Tim Henson seems like a master to me, but I don't know. He's doing guitar, I'm doing Game Boy. It's just more like the musical ideas and the creativity and stuff with Polyphia's music. But if you find someone who's way better than you to the point where you're like, oh, I'll never be that good, then that's just discouraging. You don't want to do that. You want to find someone who's like either at your level and doing different things than you, because you're like, oh, I understand what they're doing because I'm at the same skill level, but they're applying, you know, these ideas in a different way, you know, or they're doing something that's interesting, but I can like decode it, right? If you find someone who's a little bit better than you doing the same thing, then you can see what they're doing that you also do, but how they're better than you at it, right? So again, if you're drawing something and you like drawing buildings and stuff, right? You find someone else who's a little bit better than you at buildings, and you're like, oh, how come this person's buildings are a little bit better than mine? They don't have to be like amazing, because if they're amazing, crazy, you're just gonna your brain's gonna just go, does not compute, right? So if you see someone whose building drawings are a little better than yours, you're like, oh, you know, you look into their process. Oh, they're using like a perspective grid that they're drawing on top of. Maybe I should practice doing that, you know? Or that kind of thing, right? Or with chiptune, you might be like, oh, how come this person's music sounds so cool? Oh, they're doing stuff in the wave channel. Like for me, I heard Stress TM, who was doing stuff, you know, like this. And I was like, yo, hold the phone. How do you make wubba dubs in Game Boy? How do you do that? So that was probably my biggest breakthrough personally, like music-wise, was when I was listening to Consolization, the album by Stress TM. Really good, by the way. Really good album. And I was like, dude, it's like dubstep on a Game Boy. How did he do that? And it turns out he has like a video on YouTube making the wubba dubs. All his other music, he does stuff like that. I think I even dove into his save file and I was like, oh, cool. Like a lot of artists will do that. A lot of chiptune artists. Who's the master chiptune artist is, I don't know if that's a loaded question or just a question without an answer. So I can't answer it. Sometimes the master makes me think, well, I don't need to do that. They already did as good as anyone possibly could. Well, that's one way to look at it. That's a good way to look at it. It's not a good way to look at that. That's one way to look at it. That's one way to look at it. But if you think about it, that person, even if your skill level, if you could like take a, you know, like in Limitless, they like take a pill, and I never seen that movie, so I don't know why I'm quoting it. But anyways, if you could like have a magic potion, let's say, right? You cool. Oh, now you're the best, you know, ever at whatever thing you want to do, right? If your skills are equal to, like, let's say Steve Vai, because I was watching a Steve Vai video. He made this, like, 3-headed guitar called a Hydra, and he's playing, like, bass and, like, some RP synth-sounding guitar and, like, electric guitar at the same time. Just a whole song, just him, like, dude, that's crazy. It's really awesome. Anyway, you should check it out. But so if you see Steve Vai or Yngwie Malmsteen or some crazy guitarist going nuts, right? You're like, man, that's insane. I can never be that good. Also, what's the point? He's already doing that. What am I going to do that he doesn't? You have you, right? Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, you know, Herman Lee, all these guys. I'm going with guitar today. I guess I'm just really into guitar. But anyway, they don't have you. You're the missing piece in there. So if you could just boop, drink a magic potion, be as good at guitar as like Herman Lee from Dragon Force, you know, you would be making different stuff than him because you have different experiences than him. You have different ideas, your creativity is different. Even if your technical prowess is on par, you're still going to bring different ideas to the table, right? You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know. You got one thing that when I was in high school, this kid was like way too wise, by the way. This kid was way too wise. He was only in like a grade higher than me, or maybe 2 grades higher than me, but we went on a band, like a jazz band trip. And I was hanging out with this guy because he was a drummer in his grade and I was the drummer in my grade. And we went to see, you know, a drum show with this guy. And I remember saying to him, I was like, man, that dude is so good. Like, oh my God. It's like, why do I even bother? You know? And he said like, hey, don't look at him with like, don't be discouraged. You should be looking at him like, wow, look what's possible. Look what people can do. And that kind of changed my way of thinking a little bit, you know? I still think about that guy once. I can't remember his name. Oh, I remembered his name. Anyway, I just remembered he was one of those people that has like not just 2 first names, but 3 first names. Like I don't know. Like his first name was a first name, his middle name was a first name, and his last name was also a first name. He just had 3 first names. Anyways, just a funny little aside. But what I'm saying is, you know, it's easy to see people who are a lot better than you and think like, man, I can never do that. Why should I even bother trying? Or he's already doing it or whatever. But you bring your unique ideas to the table. You bring your creativity and everything. And if you can get the skills to express yourself at that level, like that's, I don't know, that's crazy. To me, that's what it's like, that's what's worth shooting for. That might not be for everyone, right? But I feel like everyone has something that they want to be good at. And if you can get good enough at music to like play your heart out, like actually like not literally, but almost literally, figuratively play your heart out. Like you have a song in your heart and you could just like, just like, you know, just like, you know, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to sit there and be like, what note is that? You know, you can just translate your thoughts to your music flawlessly. That's amazing, right? Or art. If you have a picture in your head and you can paint it in a way that people see it and they recognize what you're going for and they can understand, it's like they're peering into your brain. I don't know. I think that's something really cool about art. Maybe you're cooking too. I don't know. Cooking probably goes that deep too. Someone has a bite and they're just like, oh, wow. Oh my gosh. That, you know, that kind of thing. Being so this rant is a TED Talk waiting to happen. I don't know. I think inspiration is such an important thing. And I think that like passion and art are so important. And so many people either just give up or they don't try or they don't care. I mean, that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with not caring about music or not caring about art or not caring about whatever. But I feel like that's what we're here for, you know, is to strive to share our ideas and connect and stuff like that, right? Anyway, want to be able to have your own musical voice. Yeah, so do it. Get out and do it.